So today I'm here with a quick tutorial on how to hand sew the binding on the back side of your quilt. In one of my previous tutorials you saw that I showed you all how to machine stitch the binding to the front of your quilt. Now I'm going to show you how you roll this to the back, and you can hand stitch it down with a few different stitches so that it looks virtually invisible from the back. And here I'll show you, if I kind of pull this back, you can see that I use black thread, and that's what I'll be doing just to show you for demonstration purposes. I'm going to show you also how to miter these corners. Okay, I show you how to sew the mitered corners in my previous video, but I'll show you how to hold and stitch those down. I'm going to use black thread here, but generally you want to go with the same color thread as your binding. So in this case I would probably use this purple, or a white would be fine as well. Needles. You want to use a sharp needle, okay, because you're going to be going through fabric and batting here and then coming back up into the binding. And so this is actually a pack that I got. There's some applique needles, and I really like them because they're kind of black and gold, so it really shows up well on camera, as you can see the black needle there. So what you want to do first is start off with your thread and your sharp needle, and I don't recommend that you thread any more than maybe 18 inches of thread. The longer your thread is that you're working with, the more chances you have of creating a knot, and then you'll have to cut it and start again. So if you just keep it to maybe 16 to 18 inches, you shouldn't have a problem. So we've threaded our needle, we have a knot on the end, and about 6 inches just hanging off here loosely. We're going to start in a corner. This is how I prefer to do it. I'm going to push this down into the corner as good as I can get it in there. Then this one coming down here, I'll hold it flat. And now we're going to fold this one over to create that perfect miter here. And if you flip it over, you see we have a perfect miter here. Perfect. Some people like to use pins, and there's all kinds of gadgets out there just to help you do the binding. I don't like to use any of that stuff, clips or pins or nothing. I just kind of go as I'm stitching and hold things in place with my hand. So after I've held this down here, I'll start under here somewhere. I want to come up and go through both this part of the binding and this one, so that I'm start holding that corner together. And I'm using black thread. Hopefully you'll be able to see it on camera. So just come up through there. Now I'm going to do whip stitches all the way up to the corner up here. So I come here, move this thread out the way, grab from this side, then come to this side of the binding, and it's kind of just going this way and this way all the way up. And this is just something that I like to do because a lot of the quilts that I make are for functional purposes, you know, baby quilts, picnic quilts. They're going to get washed a lot and used a lot, and I really want to make sure that the binding is held down nicely, especially in these corners, so it doesn't come apart. And just try to get as close as you can in there. I'm making my stitches a little bit bigger just so you can see it on camera. But again, you want to use coordinating thread to the binding and make these small if you don't want them to show, but it's not really a big deal. And I'll stitch this all the way up. When I get to the top, I'll bring the needle down through that little hole at the top of that miter and come out down here. Okay? Nice and simple. So now my corner is held in place nice and tightly, and if the thread wasn't black, you could hardly see that. Now, the direction that you start sewing in is important. I mean, it's only going to be important for you because everybody has their own style. I will start in a corner here and I'll start going to the left. Some people will come down. It just depends on how you hold your fabric and what's easier for you to do. So here's what I do. I came out down here, okay? I'm going to go into the backing and the batting, and I'm going to come up on the fold of the binding. Just like that. I'll pull my thread out. My next stitch is going to be right in front of where I came out up here. So I'm going to come down into the backing and the binding and the batting, down into there, and you can take about 1/4 of an inch to 3/8 of an inch, whatever you want. If it's just going to be a wall hanging or an art quilt, something that's going up on the wall and it's not going to get a lot of wear and tear, you can even space these out 1/2 of an inch or whatever. So with this invisible stitch, when you come out at the binding, your next stitch is going to be into the backing and the batting and come down about 1/4 of an inch or so and come back up in the fold of the binding. Go back down into the backing and batting, take a bite, and come back up in the fold. Down into the backing, through, and come back up. Okay, and as you can see, even using black thread, you can hardly, you can't even see the stitches. So if you use a coordinating thread, it would work perfectly. I'm going to do a few more just to show you again. Come up through the fold of the binding, go down into the back of the quilt, and come right back up at that fold of the binding again. And this starts going pretty quickly once you get the hang of it. So because we're stitching, when we come up in the binding here, and we come right back down in front of it, you end up creating a little stitch there, which I like to call, it's like a little bite. And so that right there will hold the binding down to the quilt, and it really holds up nicely. Now, another stitch that you can do is called a ladder stitch. And this basically, you're not coming up in the fold of the binding like you are here, but you're kind of weaving through. You'll be going with your needle like up, through, down, up, like that, just like a ladder. And I don't like to use that one as much just because I don't think it holds up as nicely as this one. But you go into the backing. When you come up in the binding, remember the one before we came all the way up through. For the ladder stitch, you only go through the bottom layer. And then you go back down into the backing and come up, and you only go through the back layer of the binding. Let me stop there, that stitch is too wide. So you go down in the backing, up just through the back layer. Can you see that? You see how I'm not coming through the top part of the binding? I'm just going through the bottom, and you go back down into it, and then you'll come right back up, but just through the back layer. So I'd scoop from here, from the back, just that back layer of the binding, down into the backing, up again through the back layer of the binding, and you just kind of weave it through. So that ladder stitch, you don't see the stitching from the front again, but kind of if you just roll it back, you see how you see the stitches a lot more than you do the ones that I did all the way here. So you can see, I mean, even if I tug at this, you can see that these stitches are a lot more secure. So those are two ways that you can hand stitch your binding. So now I'll show you how to tie off. So when I get to like the last little bit of thread that I have and I have to reload another needle and keep going, this is what I tend to do. I don't know if this is proper technique or not, but this is what I do. I will just grab a little chunk of the backing. If I can get it to be under the binding, better, so you don't see it as much. I'll just take a little bite like that, pull it through, and just do another one right in its place. When I get this loop, I'll just put the needle through once and twice and create a little knot and just pull it tightly so you see, you won't even see it. Then what I like to do is right where I'm at, where that knot is, I just put my needle through into what we call like no man's land, just anywhere into the backing. Okay, so right where I made the knot, I'll put the needle through somewhere into the backing. You want to make sure that it's not coming out in front. You just want to be somewhere where the backing, the batting is. And pull your needle through. And then you can clip real close to here and kind of just scratch it so that the thread hides there in the middle of nowhere, and you're done.